Every Thursday night, 9 p.m., Iconic Cafe hits the digital radio airwaves with the best in home interviews and cooking. Be sure to check out Iconic Cafe Mishawaka Facebook page for upcoming and archive shows. Now that's iconic. All right, welcome. Hey, we are live here at XCRS Studios. Of course, we got Bill McDonald down here. We got Jeff Jones and Mr. Paul Erdman. They're still setting up. It's going to be a fantastic show tonight. If you saw us on Facebook, of course, we've been putting it up. Jeff Jones, the owner of Token Guitar Amps, and it's a pleasure having him. And, of course, having Paul Erdman coming up for Thanksgiving. He's going to play through the amps, so you got a great show tonight, because we're going to hear about guitar amps and we're going to play live how sweet these amps sound. Let's see, Jeff, why don't you get a microphone? We'll get a little bit going here. Can you explain, Jeff, once you get set up, what amps you got out here? We'll start out with that, if you could.
Okay. What I have brought with me here is I've got a Token 112 combo. It is my version kind of a Trainwreck Alessandro style of a boutique guitar amp, all tube of course. This one is EL34 powered, 12AX7 preamp tubes, all handmade in a custom hardwood cherry cabinet, single 12-inch speaker, and that was made by, I selected for this amp, a Weber speaker out of Kokomo. Trying to keep it local if I can. I like the way the speakers sound, and it does a really good job. Oh, it's a beautiful amp. And when you mentioned Trainwrecks, can you give a little history about those amps? Well, the Trainwrecks were an amp that a guy named Ken Fisher made. He worked for Ampeg up until Ampeg got bought out, and he started off on his own doing amp repairs, and somebody came to him and asked him if he could build an amplifier that was basically a single channel amplifier, no channel switching, no effects loops, no all the other stuff, just nice pure tone. But in that one channel, you'd be able to get a gain sound and a clean sound just by using the volume control on your guitar. Oh, wow. You turn the guitar up and it overdrives and compresses. You turn the guitar down and it cleans up nice, and you get a nice clean tone. So you basically get a pure tone without having a bunch of other stuff in the way of the tone. You don't have an effects loop. You don't have effects pedals running through it. You don't have all that kind of stuff. It's just pure, natural, you know. And this was back in the 50s he invented this? No. This was probably 1982. Oh, okay. Somewhere around there is when he started. He came up with the design similar to what I'm doing here. And then he started making them. And you had to sign up on a list to get one. And when you put your deposit down, and he would contact you when you were ready to get your amp built and discuss with you a little bit about what you wanted, and then proceed to build your amplifier. And from 82 till he died in 2006, he built roughly 100 amplifiers. Oh, wow. And so, you know, to get one of those, which would be, you know, like the dream, but you're talking $30,000 to $40,000 if you can find somebody that wants to part with one. So I'd known about him for years, and so I decided to try and build something myself similar to a design like that, and these are what I came up with. Well, as you can see, Paul Erdman's over here playing, but they sound beautiful. Tweaking, excuse me. Yeah. But Paul, let me know when you're ready to play a little bit, and we'll go with that too. So, all right, Mr. Paul Erdman. Okay, now this is Paul. He's playing through the Token 112 combo. It's a EL34 output Class AB amplifier. He's playing a Gibson Rusty Anderson 335 that does have Jones pickups in it.
But it's already breaking up. I mean, these amps have been in the car cold, and you just brought them in, and the tubes are already breaking up, which, I mean, how's that happen? Usually amp, you got to leave it on for a half hour. I mean,
it's the design of the amplifier, basically. You don't really have, like on a normal amplifier, when you turn it up to 6 or 7, you get your breakup. When you turn it down to 2 or 3 or 4, depending on who made the amp, it cleans up. This amp, as soon as you turn it on 1 or 2, it's starting to break up. But where you get your clean tones from is you adjust your gain settings on the amplifier to come up with what you think is a good compressed overdriven sound, and then you roll your volume control back on the guitar. So if you're trying to get a clean sound, you don't want to necessarily set the volume at 2 or 3 on the amp, because the cleans won't, the power section of the amplifier won't push hard enough to get a nice warm clean sound. It'll start thinning out. So if you turn it up a little bit and then roll the guitar back, the cleans come out of the amplifier, and it has to do with the design of the amp, the way that a lot of the gain of the amplifier is coming out of the power section instead of the preamp of the amplifier, which is a little different than a normal style amplifier.
Now, you said these are your pickups here too. Do you wind them for these amps especially, or how?
I just wind them for whatever somebody wants, basically. You know, I do a lot of different styles of pickups. I do Fender style, Stratocaster, Telecaster, Gibson P90s, humbucking, the PAF phone style pickups. I do a variety, and pretty much I've wound quite a few of them, and I just kind of listen to, what the customer wants if I custom wind some for them, and then go from there to wind them. Or if I'm just winding something for myself just to sell, I just kind of come up with an idea in my head of what I think would be a good combination and make it. We see what happens.
Well, I mean, this is a great tonal range here with the amp and the pickups. I mean, Paul's going through, a lot of different stuff here. Clean, fat, and it's really picking it up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really versatile amplifier. I think it takes a little bit of getting used to sometimes for a guy that, if they're just coming. Yeah, if you're used to using effects pedals and all that for part of your tone, it's a whole different animal.
Okay.
When you jump into one of these amps, and you're thinking, okay, I got to hit my distortion channel, and you go to hit the pedal or a channel switch, and it's not there, and you're, oh, wait a minute. No, I got to use my volume control.
Right.
So it makes you think a little bit differently about what you're doing when you go to play one.
But Paul, do you like this? I mean, without going to boxes, I mean,
it's yeah. I really do. I actually have 2 guitars that have Jeff's pickups in them, and I run one of Jeff's amplifiers on. It's not one of the tokens. It's actually and we'll get to it here in a little bit. The Jones custom guitars and amplifiers. He builds some amazing guitars, pickups, so when when I got a hold of one of my guitars with his pickups in it and running through his amplifier, I played, and I used to run a big signal chain with a lot of stomp boxes and effects pedals and everything like that. And once I started playing around with this stuff, the distortion pedals went away, all the modulating effects. I throw a booster. I've got a boost pedal on my board, and I hardly use it because I've been able to actually use the controls on the guitar, like Jeff was talking about. Typically, I'll set my lead level and my lead tone with the guitar, full bore, volume all the way up, tone knobs all the way up. Something on this setup right here. That's bridge pickup with the volume turned all the way up, and then kind of adjusted for stage level, because there's certain times where we're going to be able to really let them run. And for today, we've got an attenuator on there just to kind of keep the levels down a little bit.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're not blasting ourselves out.
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, that's the other thing to keep in mind with these amps. Running them at like a bedroom studio level, you've got to kind of put the leash on it with the attenuator. When you get out on a bigger stage, sometimes I'll turn them around so I can turn the amplifier up a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
Or I'll put a baffle in front of the amplifier and put the microphone on it and then send it back into the monitors, so it's coming back to me, but letting the amplifier really do what it's supposed to do. This is the thing about the tube amplifiers is the louder you turn them up, the better they sound.
Yes, amen.
You get the power tubes working, you get the preamp tubes working, everything's going, and you don't need to have all the guys that have 4 different overdrive pedals on their pedal board. At a low volume, and if you're running a higher wattage tube amplifier, you got to keep it at a low volume, and yeah, you have to bring the pedals back into it. But for the token right now, we've got the attenuator on there, and then the Jones, the Tweed amplifier that I brought as well, which that's my personal amplifier. Jeff built a master volume on the backside of it.
Okay.
So I can run the gain at the front end of the amplifier up as loud as I want, and I usually do. I run the gain pretty high so that I don't need to come back. Just with 3 different overdrives and a compressor pedal and all this other stuff. So I mean, we did a lot of gigs with just the guitar straight into the amplifier. Sometimes I'll put a delay pedal on there because there's no reverb on the amplifier. Like playing outdoors, I like to have a little bit of a slap back, a little bit, give it some room. But it's very, very minimal.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what's this guitar you got? This is the one Jeff put pickups in for you?
This is Jeff's guitar.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
This
That's
my
beautiful.
Guitar.
Wow.
It's a Gibson Rusty Anderson.
Okay.
It's a 59 reissue, basically, is what it is. Gibson 335. And then I put a set of my home working pickups.
Great.
You build pickups, you're going to throw them in all your guitars. Just
Well,
because,
yes.
just because you can.
Now, how'd you get the name Token?
Okay. Well, it's not what you think.
Okay.
No. It was a funny kind of a thing. I was sitting there trying to think of a name. Okay. And no. We gave that up a long time ago, Paul. I was sitting trying to think of a name. I was building an amp for a local guy here, and he asked me, he says, well, we got to do something with the front of the amp. He said, I just inherited some coins from an aunt of mine that passed away. Is there any way that you could inlay one of these coins in the front of the amp?
Oh, okay.
And I thought, well, hey, yeah, that's kind of a cool idea. It give it a uniqueness that, And then I got to thinking, about it, and I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm building something similar.
Oh, go ahead.
Something similar to a train wreck. I don't want to say that, I don't want to get in trouble even saying train wreck associated with tokens, because they aren't. They are my own design. I've changed enough in them that they're unique. Like this combo here was one that they said couldn't even be done. There aren't any out there, and most guys say, "Oh, you can't build one that way; it won't work." And here it is.
There it is.
Yes,
Yes.
it works just fine. But I was trying to come up with something unique, and when he mentioned putting a coin in there, I thought about it, and I said, "Well, wait a minute. How about if I was to look. I wonder if they have like subway tokens available.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I could keep it train related by using a subway token in the front of it. And like the train wrecks, they were all personalized with a girl's name instead of a serial number. Okay, this I can put each one a different city's token.
Gotcha.
A different subway.
Okay.
And that's where the name came up. And then after I got all that done, I stopped and sat back and looked at. I came up with a logo for it, and I stopped and looked, and it kind of hit me. If you take the token and separate it, it could be my tribute to Ken, which was Ken Fisher, the guy that did the original train wrecks.
Yeah,
So, okay,
I see it now. I see it.
It just kind of stuck. Yeah, that's got to be what it is. And so each one, then when I build them, I take a subway token from a different city.
Okay.
And I inlay it in the front or the top, depending on whether it's a combo or a head or whatever. And so each one then is unique and personalized to that token.
Very nice. Now, was his amps too just solid wood, or how did you come up with that?
Yes.
And what was that about instead of Tolex? I mean, does it make a difference in the sound, or?
I think it does a little bit in the speaker cabinets, especially.
Okay.
You know, different hardwoods resonate differently, and I think the solid, just like an acoustic guitar, your sound is coming from the resonance of the cabinet, and the same with the speaker cabinets. I think in a head by itself, I think it's all cosmetic. It's just something unique, It looks to me more boutique.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Me being a woodworker too, I just said, that's got to be the way that it needs to be. I do amps and Tolex and cover them and tweed and all the different materials like the traditional amplifiers, but I love building an amp out of solid wood. And, picking an exotic species of wood, and when I get it done, it's just like the icing on the cake.
Right.
You've got a great sounding amp, you've got a good solid build, and then it's in a beautiful cabinet on top of that. To me, it just doesn't get any better.
Hey, now where can people see the website that shows pictures of these?
Well, I've got a Facebook page for token amplifiers, and if you Google just tokenamps.com, I've got a web page also. There's pictures on it of amplifiers and price lists and all that available. And if you want to see one in person, if you're ever in South Bend, Indiana, South Bend Music Exchange and South Bend Drum Company has amplifiers there that you can come in and demo them, and if you like, take one home with you.
And where are they located at?
They are on Portage Avenue in South Bend.
Okay, great.
I'm not sure the exact address, but you can find them. There's a link to them on my webpage.
And so people could get a hold of you on Facebook if they're interested in an amp. I mean, that'd be probably the best way.
Yeah, they can get a hold of me on Facebook. That would be probably the easiest. My email is on the website also. They can contact me by email if they would want one.
Great. Now, Paul, you're playing through your amp now. Okay.
He switched guitars. He's playing his guitar with my pickups in it now.
Right on.
Stratocaster with P90s, I believe, that I wound.
Oh, you got the dog ears. Okay.
Yeah. These are soap bar ones. They're not the dog ear. But they sound good, too.
So, Paul, how did you find out about these amps? I mean, did you hear someone play them, or?
No. Back to the microphone.
Yeah, we only got two mics here, but
low budget. I've known Jeff for a while, and I think the first time that I met him over at the other shop that he works at, he had showed me a bunch of pictures of his guitars and amps, and we kind of struck up a little bit of a friendship on and off. And I was at the time running another, actually regional amplifier. I go back too far into it, but
another show.
Yeah, that's another discussion. But it was an amp that I had long since wanted and coveted, and I'd wanted to get one of these, and I finally had one. and I'd been playing on it for about 6 months, and right about that time, Jeff started putting his stuff into on the floor over at South Bend Music Exchange, and I started messing around with them in there, and I hit 2 or 3 chords on the amp that is now mine, and just floored, just blown away. The other amp I had was a real high-end boutique, hand-built custom deal kind of thing, and it was nice, but it didn't knock me out like this one does.
Well, you need to get to meet the owner.
I did. I've talked to him on the phone though. To their,
Wow, now that makes everyone wonder who it is now.
Yeah.
If you talk to him on the phone,
it's one of those companies. If you call him up, like there's a pretty good chance that you may actually talk to the owner. And he's a super, super nice guy. From our phone conversations, everybody I've talked to has nothing but positive things to say about this company. That's the one right there. Just from telling him the serial number, he knew what color it was and what speaker it came out of the shop in and around what time it was built and all that kind of stuff. So it was still very, very cool, but it didn't work for me with the way that I play and the style of music that I play and that my band plays. This was prime case in point where I've got a great sounding amp, but to get close to what sounds right to my ear, I was stacking 3 overdrive pedals and a compressor and putting all of this stuff back on top of it to get it there. And I plugged a guitar straight into Jeff's Tweed amp and it's a 210 based off an old Super Reverb, about half of a Super Reverb, right? Just a Super. Yeah, there's no reverb in it. Yeah. So it would just be a Super, or just a Soup. There's only, it's half the wattage. But I was able to diamond it out, and then having that master volume in there, I could get the sound that I'd been hearing for a long time and that I wanted to hear, without blowing the roof off of the place, and without putting a bunch of pedals back into it. And so that was really my first shot at hearing these amps. And I played the tokens, and at the time, Jeff only had the heads, and I've just always been a combo guy. I always liked my combo amps. Having a head and a cabinet was just way, way out of my price range. And Jeff let me borrow that amp for a couple of weeks, played some shows with it, did a little bit of recording with it, and finally hit a point where we had a meeting with the rest of the guys over at South Bend Music Exchange for the South Bend Art Beat that they do every summer. And Mike Janovic, that has the music store, was like, okay, we're going to do a booth, and we're gonna highlight, because he's got a lot of other locally made products. He's got there's a buddy of ours in South Bend, it's Tom Denea, that's building acoustic guitars.
Oh, okay.
Jeff's guitars are over there, his amps are over there, and then Option 5, which is Jay Woods, and they sponsored the Nooner here with Jason Roos.
Right.
And so we had, we demoed amps, guitars, pedals, acoustic guitars, electric guitars, pickups, and Mike Janovic, that owns the store, also makes drums. So we had everything we were using aside from our PA system was all made right here in town, which was just super, super cool. So we had this meeting to talk about Artbeat, and I had brought my other amp, and Jeff and I had already kind of discussed, well, what about a trade? And so I brought the other amp, and I had it in the trunk of my car, and after we got done with the meeting, I said, hey, Jeff, come here. And I just handed him my old amp, and he's like, all right, well, let me check it out a little bit. 2 weeks later, we're at the Art Beat. I'm like, so what do you think, man? And he just holds his hand out. We shake on it. And it's like, that was done. That was it. So straight up swap. And I've had so many people when we're out at shows, especially when we're out of town. When we go out of town and we play out on the road, people look at it and they go, what is it? And then they hear it and they're like, oh my gosh, what is that? So we keep bringing people back, and it's a combination, because we've got the pickups, we've got Jeff's pickups in our guitars. We use I've got the amp, and then actually my guitar player and my bass player all use Option 5 stuff as well.
Oh,
so
great!
We've got a lot of local gear that's in our band. My drummer plays one of the snare drums that Mike built from the South Bend Drum Company.
Great.
So we're a huge proponent of keeping everything local as possible, and it's super easy when the local stuff is so high quality.
Definitely.
It'd be a different deal if somebody was building guitars and they were giving us guitars, but the guitars sucked. It's hard to get behind something like that. But when it's really good to begin with, and then you've got support from other people, you can't help but get excited about it.
Definitely. Hey, Paul, where can they get a hold of you? You got Facebook, websites?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, but the easy way to go is my website, which is paulemusic.com.
Okay.
And that's probably the easy way. From there, you can get to my Reverb Nation page, and my Facebook page, and YouTube, and Twitter, and all the other social parasites that I've got to keep on top of. You know what? Like, as an artist anymore, you spend as much time actually playing guitar as you do chasing all of these other websites and updates, and there's a lot to it, man. There's a lot to it. But it's nice having, good, reliable gear, and then also having guys that if something does go down, they can help you out in a hurry, so you don't have to. That's the thing that I don't have to stress out about is is my amp gonna work? Is my guitar gonna work? That kind of stuff. It's remembering who I have to call and who I need to email and who I gotta touch base with this week and who I gotta touch base with next week and tomorrow and all that kind of stuff, man.
Well, it's great. And, they're beautiful amps. And even the Tolex one, like you said, your amp, it's just beautiful. What kind of wood or the joints do you do with it, when you put the wood together?
The one that Paul has, the Tweed one, the Jones amp, it's finger jointed. The cabinet is solid pine, just like an old Fender would be.
Right,
and then
right.
It's finger jointed together, so that it's a good solid cabinet. It's going to be durable, and then of course just cover it in the Tweed. And I've aged the Tweed on this one, so
I know it's beautiful.
It looks vintage. It looks vintage. This is a special edition, the Paul Erdman model.
Is there one? Is there going to be a?
Well, this is. Most of them have a standard aging, and his is a little more aged because I know he's a road warrior.
Well, it holds up. It looks like it's brand new.
How long have I had this amp?
Yeah, you got your first drink ring.
Oh, okay.
Cool. But the other amps use it's like a tongue and groove joint. It looks like just a butt joint where the two pieces of wood are joined together, but internally there's actually a tongue and groove to give it more strength. You've got a bigger gluing surface, and it strengthens it up. But cosmetically, I don't know, it looks, on the solid wood ones, it looks, I wouldn't say better, but it looks nice that way.
Oh, yeah.
I've done some with the box joint, finger joints, and those look nice also. But, it just depends on what wood I'm using and what I'm trying to make it as a final product, make it look like which joint I'll use and all that. I try and go for strength either way. I don't want to send something out on the road with somebody that's not durable.
Definitely. Well, hey, we got less than a minute left. We're going to take a break. We're going to play a couple Allman Brothers songs. Give it a little break here.
Okay.
And we'll be back. But again, after our show tonight, it'll be Radio Classics, Suspense, Sorry Wrong Number, and the House of Cypress Looks Like Gardens. And that is brought to you by the Phoenix Bar and Grill. And also, we have the Phoenix on Friday will be Soul Function, and Saturday will be the Whistle Pigs. Of course, Five Star Dive Bar will have Drive on Friday night. So it's great. Oh, okay. Paul's got his trio, Ruth Chris, tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday night. So that'll be great, too. We'll put it on. So, hey, we're going to get a little Allman Brothers. We'll be back after 2 songs. This is Iconic Radio. All right, welcome back. We're back on Iconic Radio. Here at Paul Erdman there. We got Jeff Jones and, of course, Bill McDonald. Bill, always appreciate it. Big shout out to Michiana Edge. That's Adam Nelson. And, of course, Adam does our menus. And, Jeff, what do you think of the menu?
Oh, it looks great. You're making me hungry even though I stuffed myself this afternoon. Just looking at this makes me want to go down there and check it out. Everything looks fantastic.
All right, thank you for that. Of course, we want to give a shout-out to Albertina, Martha's Midway, always support the Blues. Of course, my sister Debbie, Sarah, and Sam. And upcoming shows, next week we'll have Jimmy Lovett with Musicians Co-op is going to be opening up pretty soon. I think December 6th.
Cool.
Yep, and we'll do Memories of McNeese. We'll have Thomas Russell on 12/11, author of his new book, Finding Your True North, A Bullied Teen's Journey of Hope. And 12/18 will be Mike Hayes, director of the Mishawaka Food Bank. So, Jeff, I put on some Allman Brothers, and there's a story with that with your amps.
Well, kind of, I guess.
All right.
Okay.
Kind of's good for the radio.
Warren Haynes played with the Allman Brothers. He has one of my amps right at the moment, and it kind of turned out that, through meeting someone at where I work at in my daytime job, I ran into a guy that was friends with Warren, and he did mention that, well, next time I talk to Warren, I'll tell him about your amps, and we'll see about getting one to him. And I didn't give it, a whole lot of thought. I just thought, oh, well, that's great. If it happens, it happens. It probably won't, And 6-8 months later, he calls me up and he says, well, what are you doing Friday night? And I said, well, why? And he's, well, Warren's playing up in Chicago and he wants to see one of your amps. So I said, of course, we're going to Chicago. And I took an amp to Warren, and he's had it for a little over a year now.
Wow.
He's played it. He played it at the Lockenfest in Arrington, Virginia, I believe it was in July. And played with Phil Lesh and all those guys from the Grateful Dead, and there's Warren standing up on stage with my amp. That was pretty impressive to me.
That had to be fantastic.
And then I got an email from Warren that oh, here, I thought you might like these, and he sent me some pictures of him playing it. And I thought that was fantastic. So, I made a new friend in Warren, just, got to hang out at some of his shows. He's checking out my amps. I want to try and build him a custom amp specifically for him, and we talked about it. He invited us to come out to New York to see one of the last of the Allman Brothers shows.
Oh, wow. Which
was just a once-in-a-lifetime thing that just blew me away. The guy is just so nice. He doesn't have the rock star big head attitude. He's just a real down-to-earth guy. He's like, hey, if you guys want to come out and see the show, I'll make it happen. Just let me know. And so he did. Got to meet all the guys and hang out a little bit, and really, really, really good time.
What kind of amp did he get? What model?
Warren, he has the Express. It's like the combo that Paul is playing right now.
Okay.
EL34 output tubes, 12AX7 preamps. He got the head version, and he got my Maui Express, which had a Maui Railroad token, a vintage 1950s Maui Railroad token.
Wow.
And, I just say it, it's not that wasn't intended necessarily, but, take it how you want. No, it was a really good sounding amp. I took it down to an amp expo in Nashville, and I had a guy that's got a studio down in Georgia that came up, and he played through the thing, and his first comment before he played it was, I got to tell you, I'm a Marshall guy. I hate train wrecks. But
so he knew what they were.
He says, I hate them. I'll play through one of your amps and see, but I'm telling you right now, I'm probably not gonna like it. And he plugged into it, and he played about 4 chords, and he looked at me and he said, That's not a train wreck. I said, no, that's a token. It's my amp. And he says, I love this thing. I'm not putting you on. I'm not telling you any kind of stories. He says, I absolutely love this thing. And I was just blown away. I was like, wow, that's another guy that absolutely did not like them at all that played through the thing, and so it's just got something about it that I really, really like. So that was kind of cool, but that was the one that Warren ended up with. So I figured, I know that one's good. They're all good, but I had, confirmation from numerous people about the way it sounded, so I was comfortable in giving that one to Warren to use to, and not having to worry that, I don't know, it's not going to sound quite right to him, they are a unique amp, so it's probably a lot different than the amps that he uses live, because he uses a Soldano and a Diaz 100 watt. But, he plugged into it backstage up in Chicago and played about 4 chords, and he's just like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. And that was, another one that just, made me just light up inside, hey, here's a guy that he knows tone. Yes. He knows guitar amps and guitars and stuff, and he's saying it's sounding good. Okay, I must be doing something right.
Well, how many watts are? I mean, you can make 100 watt. Or
I could build them to about anything, I suppose. Just by changing the output section design a little bit and getting. You'd have to for the tokens. I'd have to have custom transformers made. But I'm almost contemplating it, trying to do something a little higher powered for the guys that are playing out in the bigger venues, just to have a little more punch behind them. The ones that I do, the Express style model is 50 watts with the 2 EL34s. The other ones that I do, there's 2 other models that use EL84 tubes in Class A circuitry, to where it comes out 30 watts in Class A, like a Vox AC30.
Correct.
They don't sound very Voxy because the rest of the circuit is a little bit different, but the output section is the EL84s, which is the classic British Vox kind of a sound running Class A. So right now I'm doing 30 and 50 watts. I'm working on, I think, like I say, I want to get with Warren and try and build something for him. And when I do, I'm thinking it's going to be 100 watt. It'd be better suited, I think, for the rest to blend in with his stage setup, to be a little more practical for him.
Now your speaker cabinets too. Can you put 4 speakers and mount in? I can build just about any speaker cabinet combination that you want. The combos of the tokens that I'm doing right now are single 12, but I've been playing that amp through a 210 cabinet, and I'm almost thinking that in the future here I'm going to try a 210 combo too, because I really like the how that sounded. Because it pushes more air?
It pushes a little bit more air, and the bass response is a little bit different between the 210s and the single 12. And it gives it a little different sound, and it's something I think I can work with and dial in another unique sounding combination by doing that. And then I also build, like for the heads, I do at this point a 212 combo cabinet, or a head and cabinet that's solid hardwood like that. And I've done it kind of unique to where it's got a removable panel on the back of it, to where you can use it as an open back 212, or you can put the panel back in and make it a closed back 212.
What's the difference with that?
It changes the way the speakers respond. The bass response changes of the overall sound of the cabinet. It tightens up the bass, I think, having the back closed. It gets a little more open and airy with the back off. You're getting the sound coming out the back and out the front. And I think the frequencies tend to kind of at times almost cancel themselves when some of the waves come around the front of the cabinet and they meet in the middle there and they hit each other. You get a little bit of cancellation, but it just tonally it makes for 2 different tone styles out of the same cabinet.
Right. And would it matter like Paul's playing a Telecaster now, would it matter of a closed back or open back if you're playing a Tele compared to a Les Paul or something? Does it?
It makes a little. I suppose it would make a little bit of difference, but I mean, it's I think what it all boils down to is personal preference of the artist playing it. You know, if you got a sound in your head that you're looking to find, you know, musicians are a funny bunch of people to where, you know, we try 8 different speaker cabinets with 10 different amps until we come up with this sound that works for about 8 months, and then we decide that we hear something else that we want to do, and we're out searching for that sound. You know, it's kind of like the lost chord kind of a thing, and the lost tone. We're searching for that lost tone, and you know, so I think it's a never-ending battle. It's something that you're never 100% satisfied, but I think that's more important than, you know, saying, okay, this is, you know, making a cookie-cutter style amp that, you know, this is what you're going to get. You're getting this speaker and this amp head, or this speaker and this amp in a combo, and that's all we're going to do. You know, yeah, I tend to like Ken Fisher's attitude of, you know, how he built them personally, each amp, and listen to the amp. You know, when I get an amp done, I'll run the same amp through 10 different speakers and listen to it until I find the right combination of amplifier and speaker, and then I'll go through, and the same with the tubes and stuff. I'll try different tubes, different manufacturers, different, you know, brands, different, even like the first preamp tubes, changing from a 12AX7 to a 12AY7 and changing the gain structure a little bit, and just to come up with the perfect tone out of that combination of amplifier, speaker, or at least, you know, what I'm hearing in my head. Now, when somebody else gets it, they may have a different idea and change things around to suit them a little bit, but I try and make each amp personal like that. I don't try, okay, this is exactly what you're getting. You're getting a JJ 12AX7 here, and you're getting a Celestion speaker, and it's a done deal. No. Each amp that I have built, every one of them has been unique and different, and each has a different speaker, a different tube, a different, even the components in the circuits. You know, I'll go through and I'll change components out to, you know, okay, we need a little more resistance here, or change a capacitor here or there to change a little bit of the amp structure to make it come out what I'm hearing in my head when I come to the bench to build it.
Well, it seems too. I mean, because I want one made, but you would listen to the customer too of what he wants, instead of just, hey, here it is.
Yeah. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'd like you to build me a custom amplifier, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get a feel for what you want. You know, Paul Erdman here. You know, I know he's not going to want a 200-watt Marshall Major style amplifier with the stuff that he plays. He's not Richie Blackmore out playing, you know, Deep Purple or something like that. You know, that's not his style of playing. You know, what you're hearing now, you know, that nice, clean kind of full. That's, you know, a Paul Erdman sound.
And that's nice. It's a very nice sound.
Yeah. And, you know, so I know if Paul comes to me and says, hey, I'm looking for you to make me an amp, I've got a good feel from hearing him play and talking with him. I get a feel for what he is going to want and need. And I will, when I sit down and do something for him, I will make it to what he is looking to hear.
Well, that's very rare, I think, and what you find.
Yeah. And that's what I think drives me to enjoy doing it, is the satisfaction of being able to do that in a world of mass-produced cookie-cutter, you know, here's 20 Marshalls made in China that were on an assembly line that, you know, this person stuck this part in the circuit board and this guy ran it through the solder bath and soldered the whole board together, and, you know, one guy plugged it in at the end and made sure all the controls turned up and down, and it got a stamp of approval and got put out on the floor. And, you know, the kid comes to Guitar Center and he sits down and he rocks out on it for a little bit and buys it. And, you know, that's great. it's something he can afford, but I'm trying to go beyond that and build unique products especially suited to the artists that are buying them.
You know, and again, where can they go to? Someone hears this. Where can they contact you? What's your Facebook page?
Well, it's Token Guitar Amps. I've got a web page. If you just go Google tokenguitaramps.com, it'll take you to there. At the bottom of that page, there's a link to my Facebook page, and then also for local guys, there's South Bend Music Exchange, and there's a link on my page for that also. They can come in, and I've got a bunch of my amps down at the store. I've got guitars and everything, and you can come down and play them and check them out and see what you think.
Well, I got to go down there, and I got to play the one amp, which sounds like a Marshall or a Fender. Can you explain more on that? Because that was it was a head, but it was beautiful. There was just a switch with it.
Well, yeah. I tried to design something. I wanted two different sounds, and I had an idea of what those sounds were in my head, and so I designed one channel, kind of I would say mid-'60s brown Fender, like a brown deluxe
Which
style.
is a sweet amp.
Oh, yeah, Ted Nugent's favorite recording amp.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how do you get any better than that?
My man.
You know, so that was what I designed the one channel to sound like, and then I thought, well, okay, we've got a Fender thing going on. Now let's do something a little British on the other side. So I did a Marshall kind of thing. You know, it's my own design. You know, I took little bits and pieces of Marshall and I added my own, what I hear and what I decided would sound good into the thing. And so that's what I made, you know, with the two channels. And then, of course, I added a tremolo circuit in it just because I thought that was something that would be really cool. And I've got, you number one and some other people that are asking to do that one in a combo.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think somewhere down the road here, I will put that one into a combo amp. Yeah. Well, I can do that.
What's a waiting time for these? Is there anything if someone,
Well, I do have, like I say, I've got them in the store down there at South Bend Music Exchange, and I've got a few on hand pre-built right now. If you wanted an Express or if you wanted a Rocket style, which is the EL84 style, I have those on hand right now, ready to go. I've got a couple of those down at the store. I've got like a super like what Paul is playing through right now down there, ready to go for sale. And then I've got a deluxe style single 12 combo, a little grittier, a little more gain to it, more compressed, but it's in an ambrosia maple cabinet instead of a tweed cabinet, which is a real highly figured. It's kind of the worms crawl through the wood and put streaks in it, and just beautiful. It's on my Facebook page. You can
good.
See
So
it.
they can see pictures of these on there. Great.
Yeah, that one's down there ready to go also. But if somebody wanted something custom built, probably I'd say 30-day lead time on building one custom.
Okay.
Well,
that's not that much time.
No,
I mean, really.
No. And it depends on my workload, but generally 30 days, and that gives me time enough to build it, and then also because I like to sit down, I don't like to just put it together and then send it out. I want to sit down and be able to play it a little bit and make sure everything's sounding the best that it can before I send it out the door. So that includes a little bit of that time in there too.
Now, people can see it. You go to shows, right?
Oh yeah, I go to shows all over the place.
What do you got coming up for people if they're interested?
Right now, the next one that I think is on my calendar is going to be Columbus, Ohio in January. So I think the mid-January in Columbus, Ohio, there's a show that we always do. I'll have amps there. That's always a good show. It's going to go on, I think, January, and then in June they do a second one, and we always go to that. In between there, I'm not sure. I'd like to get back down to Nashville again. I haven't been down there, and it's been almost probably a year now.
Oh, wow.
Just the schedule, it hasn't been working out for us to be able to get down to it. So But I want to get back down there, and then we do Chicago. We do a couple of different shows in Chicago, Milwaukee, possibly Philadelphia. We go all over the place. Just it just depends on what's going on. Well, with all of my other, I've got a regular full-time job, so trying to do that. And if I've got somebody wanting an amp built, I can't just pack up and run off and leave them hanging. So, I have to flex a little bit. But
well, and then you'll have these shows posted on Facebook. So if someone's interested in meeting you.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Well, I just met you. It's been a month ago, and like I said, you were so personable, and you took the time to sit down, and I really compliment you with that. That's
thank you.
I mean, really, but that's what it's all about.
To me, that's what it's all about. I love to sit down and get to know people and meet them, and especially talking music. I could sit and talk your ear off. We could sit here till 5 a.m. if you'd let me. And
if
I know
Bill would get out of here, we'd do it.
I could sit and talk all day about this stuff. I just love it. That's just me. You could ask my wife; she'll tell you all about it.
Okay, Bill just said we posted Jeff's website as a link on the XERS website, so be able to check that out. Paul, what are you playing through right now? What do you got? Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's playing a Telecaster that I built.
Oh, okay.
It's got my pickups in it. That has a Joe Barden style bridge pickup in it that I made, and then it's got a regular Telecaster style neck pickup, vintage 50 style neck pickup.
It's like a baseball bat, isn't it?
Well, that one actually it's a medium.
Oh, okay.
Medium V profile. It's like a mid 50s style profile. It's kind of along the lines of like an Eric Clapton Stratocaster. It's not I built some earlier 50s style ones that they got what they call a boat V, which is a way fatter. It's almost an inch thick all the way up and down the neck. This one's like 0.87 inches at the first fret, and it goes up to like 0.9 inches at the 12th fret. So it's not quite as chunky. It's got a different feel to the back of the neck than like the most guys like the C profile. The medium C profile is kind of a standard Fender profile. This has got more of a V to it, which personally I like better, but that's just me. And he's just running straight into the Tweed Jones amp right there.
Oh, that's great. Good. Well, we got about a minute left. We'll take a break, a couple more Allman Brothers songs, and we'll get into your guitars now. That'd be nice talking about that. What we get with that. So again, tonight, Radio Classics, Suspense will be it. Sorry, Wrong Number, and The House in Cypress Canyon. Okay, I thought it was Garden, and that is brought to you by the Phoenix. And, of course, this Friday night at Phoenix Grill be Soul Function. And Saturday will be Whistle Pigs, 5-Star Dive Bar with Jason will be Drive. So this is Iconic Radio. We'll be back with Jeff Jones, Paul Erdman, and Bill McDonald. See you in a bit. All right, we're back on Iconic Radio. Mr. Paul Erdman was cranking out here, and this is Jeff. This is your guitar.
Yeah, this is one of my guitars. It's just one of my personal guitars that Paul's playing. It's the Rusty Anderson 335 Gibson.
Okay.
Beautiful guitar. He's playing now through the Class A 30-watt head through a single 12-inch Weber speaker and an open back cabinet, and it rocks. A little different gain structure in this amplifier and a little different tone. Kind of that British sound.
Oh, man, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's just controlling it with the sound, right?
He's running straight into the amp, no effects pedals, no anything. It's just the guitar and the amp running out the speaker. And, that's what I like. I mean, just nice pure tone.
Oh, it's warm. It's got biting highs in it. It's warm.
It's got a nice complexity to the tone. There's overtones and stuff in there that just, make it just sound beautiful.
And it's not even I don't even know what you got it on, Paul. What do you got it?
He's got it on next to nothing now.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's just breaking up beautiful. It's amazing stuff with it. Amazing stuff. Wait, why don't we talk about it? Because you do make guitars too, right? They're called Jones Guitars.
Yes, sir, I do. I make Strat, Telly style, I guess, guitars is what I've built acoustic guitars before, and I built some ukuleles also. So, I mean, I do quite a few different things, but the ones that I do the most are like Strat and Telly clones. That's just, I like them. They're fun to build. I'd like to build Les Paul style guitars, but with all the other things I have going on, doing the amps, working a full-time job, there just doesn't seem to be time to spend. If I concentrated on that, something else would have to suffer a little bit. So I stick with what I can do, and so I do the Strats and Telly styles for the most part, or something similar to that.
Well, and it was neat because I asked you too. I'd like a 7/8. I'm not really a big guy, but you were nice enough to say, "Yeah, I'll look into it for you." And I've never had anyone else do that. It's usually it's nah, we can't do it.
Can't do it. Can't do it.
But I mean that again, another compliment.
Yeah.
For you.
Thank you.
Let me check into it for you, make something happen.
I'm willing to try. We'll see what we can do. I'm not going to turn you away right off and just say no, it's impossible. If I did that, I wouldn't have done half of the things that I did. You wouldn't be listening to that combo we heard earlier tonight because everybody told me that if that won't work. And I said, well, no, let's see. What have I got to lose?
I know. What drives you for this? I mean, this is fantastic stuff. Was it something you always wanted to do as a kid? I mean,
well, yeah, I guess I started out, in high school getting into the electronics, and my dad was a woodworker. He was a carpenter. My grandpa was a carpenter. My uncle was a carpenter.
So this is generations.
So, I've got generations of woodworking history in the family. I don't know if my dad really taught me a ton of woodworking, but I worked with him and watched, and I think I learned more just because he was the type of guy that here you go do this, help me out here, whatever. But he wasn't real helpful in. Okay, come here, and I'm going to show you exactly how to. So I'd stand back at a distance and just kind of watch him and observe. Well, what are you doing, and why you ask questions, and just kind of stood back and learned that way. I think more, and I don't know, maybe a little bit of it is just in my blood. I don't know. It's something that I enjoy doing, and it just was always there. And with the electronics that I took in school, and I went to Valparaiso Technical Institute, took some electronics schooling there. With that and what I learned in high school and just on my own after the fact, it just kind of all came together. And I started seeing things. Well, like back when I was in electronics school, I'd see these custom amplifiers, and I was just a young kid with, school debts and all kinds of stuff like that, and there's no way I could afford anything nice boutique-y like that. I was playing through silver tones and,
those are nice too.
Well, those are nice too, but, they are now. Back then it was just something you could afford. Nobody knew that. Everybody. Oh, that's collectible. Oh, that's got the coolest tone.
Yeah.
It was just something that was cheap and you could afford.
Right.
I mean, so I couldn't really afford anything boutique-y like that, and I started thinking, well, wait a minute. Why can't I build something like that? I know I've got a little bit of a technical thinking process going on with me, and I ought to be able to come up with something at least reasonably decent, so I thought, well, okay, I can go out and spend that much money on a boutique thing and have one and say, yeah, okay, I did it, and be in debt for a while or whatever the thing back then, or I can go out and buy a handful of parts and pieces, and the same with the guitars. You know, I saw fancy boutique guitars that I just died to have. Gosh, I'd love to have one of those, but, you know.
Yeah, like what Bill's got.
Yeah, like this. We got a, 40-year-old SG hanging on the wall here that is just beautiful. You know, and as a kid, I'm playing the silver tones and the cheapies and the hand-me-down that's been refinished and had the frets redone 8 times and the neck's warped, but hey, it's still got strings and I can play it, but so I'm thinking, well, what happens if I go out to the local store here and buy some wood and start working? And so that's where that all started, with the building guitars. I mean, I went to a local wood store and bought a chunk of flame maple wood to make a body with. Was my first thing that I ever tried.
So it was just a chunk of...
It was just a chunk of maple. And I said, you know what? And at that time, I didn't even really have a decent shop. I remember sitting there cutting this thing out by hand and thinking, I'm going to... Well, and what got me was, I'm seeing like Paul Reed Smith with the fancy maple guitars, and I'm thinking, I got to build something like that. But I don't have the factory like Paul had. But it's funny because Paul Reed built some of his first guitars in the bedroom of his house.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I was reading that story about that. And so I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of funny, because my first guitar I sat there and cut out by hand in the living room of my house, and it worked. It came out. I've still got the guitar today. And, I was trying to come up with that Paul Reed Smith yellow color.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I didn't have the fancy spray equipment and all that. So I formulated my own yellow dye out of RIT dye and some alcohol and hand dyed this thing. And it came out looking that same Paul Reed Smith yellow color. I kind of worked around my limitations, but I had my mindset that I'm going to do this. And it just progressed from there. And as time went on, I got better shop, more tools, and started doing things the proper ways. But, there was always this desire that, I want something nice, but, I can't necessarily just go out and buy it. So I'm going to have to get creative and try and do it on my own and manufacture it.
Well, I wish you'd write a book on this, because a lot of people need that inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, really, to be able to do what they're passionate at. You're very fortunate. But like you said, you took action on it.
I think that's the biggest thing is, I decided in my mind, no, I'm not going to give up. No, I'm not going to let someone tell me that I can't do it. Okay, well, my first guitar, if I set that up next to the guitars I do today, yeah, they're probably not nearly as, refined as what they are now. But it's all a process, I think. The more you do it, the better the tools get, and the more experience you gain, they start coming out better and more consistent, but that's how you learn.
Yes.
You have to just go out and do it, and then, okay, well, this isn't, I don't think there's anything in this world perfect. So, if you're trying to attain perfection, it's going to be one of those, just like, finding the lost chord or the lost sound with the, you're never going to get 100% perfect, but it keeps you motivated to want to try and find a better design, a better way of doing something, and it comes out in your work as you progress that they get better and better and better. That when I was, in high school, I played around with doing amps and modifying stuff and repairing stuff, and I've got an amp that I worked on, back in 1980, 81, that, I did all my trick modifications to and all that, made it into what I wanted, and I still got it, But I go back and I look at that compared to what I'm doing today, and it's night and day different. It almost makes me laugh to look at the old one and say, wow, I did that.
Oh, really?
But, that's just, because I see what I'm doing now is so much different, But I just, I guess 2 years ago now, I decided to start getting serious with the amplifiers, and I kind of played around with doing that kind of thing, but I decided, I'm gonna take a shot at getting a little more serious with it and see what happens.
Oh, it's been a fantastic journey for you. I mean, really,
yeah.
And they're beautiful. It's like your passion just comes out in them. I mean, really, and that's a gift. It's really beautiful stuff.
Well, it has to be, because I know it's nothing that I've been really worthy of. I guess it is a gift. It's like somebody's looking at me and saying, "Oh, okay,"
Now, in the future, do you want to branch off into other, besides amps and guitars? Is there other?
I think for now, I'm happy pretty much with. I've got a pretty full plate. Effects pedals and stuff like that, I don't see as being anything that I really need to get into. I think there's enough creative potential with just the guitars and the amps that I'm doing right now that I'll probably come up with ideas to outlive me at this point. I mean, all the stuff I've got running around in my head of things that I want to do, it's going to be, where's all the time going to come from at this point? So
that's true. That's true.
I'm at least being realistic in that respect that, I know that I've only got so much time, and if I had all the time in the world, I'd branch off into a bunch of different areas probably and try and do other things. But I'm happy right now with just the amps and guitars, and I think I focus a little heavier on the amps at this point than I do the guitars. That seems to be where my passion is leading me. The amps are what I enjoy a little bit more. I like them both, but the amps are, I've got creative ideas that are just running around in my brain that I want to try and put down into a physical thing and see where it goes.
Now, when you do that, do you got like engineering paper? When you got an idea, do you sketch it out on paper first?
A lot of times, yeah.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times I do. I'll sit down and I'll draw out a schematic. Okay, this is what I'm wanting to do. Like the amp that you played down there at the music store.
Right.
That was something I sat down and I just started sketching it out on paper. Okay, this is what I want to do, and look at a few other designs of how somebody did something, and then draw out my own idea of what I thought was a better idea of it. Instead of using this part here or that part there, I'm going to replace it with this. I'm going to do this because, like the tremolo on that amp. The original, Fender designs for a tremolo circuit like that, it was way faster. And to me, you turn it up and it's not usable.
Because it goes too fast.
Because it goes too fast. So I redesigned the circuit to slow it down. I thought, this, I think, is a better functioning idea. It's going to be something that musicians are going to be able to use more. It gives you more range of control in the sweep of the control, having it slower, and it's plenty fast enough, to me at least, at the maximum level. It's still a usable sound, and so that's what I went with. But so I sit down and I draw out my ideas sometimes, and sometimes they're just in my head, and I build one up real quick and then I draw it out. It just depends, how much time constraint I have, or if it's something simple that I think, okay, I can, I've got a basic idea that I just want to change a few things in a design that I've already worked with, then, I might sit down and just build it and then kind of on the fly modify it. Okay, well, let's try changing out this component or that component after I've built it to get exactly what I'm looking for.
Now, do musicians inspire you? Like you said, Clapton, you hear him play. Does that make you want to build a amp that sounds something like that?
Oh, absolutely.
So who was some of your inspirations with that?
Oh, my gosh. My inspirations, they just run all over the place. I was a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan.
Oh, wow, yeah.
He was one of my favorite guitarists. I got to see him a couple of times before he died.
Did you meet him? Did you get a chance?
I never got a chance to meet him. I actually built a clone of one of his guitars just for myself personally.
Oh, wow.
Just because he was one of my biggest heroes, I guess, for guitar playing, and I loved his tone, and I loved the fact that, like, I remember hearing stories of him going into the studio. On his last album, he had like 49 amplifiers in the studio, and he's blending, little of this, little of that, and I'm thinking, my gosh, here's a tone connoisseur,
yes,
or a tone nut. I don't know what you want to call it, but I mean, he was just that into it, and that just impressed me, I'm like, here's a guy that isn't satisfied with just, give me a super reverb and I'm good. Live he used a Howard Dumble, he used a super reverb, he used a vibroverb, he used a Marshall 100-watt, and the funny thing, he used a 100-watt Marshall for his clean tones. Most guys use the Marshall for their distorted tones.
Right.
Here he's using a 100-watt Marshall for his clean sounds. And that just always impressed me. Is okay, that's a little different thinking, but it worked. And that helps me to when I come up with a crazy idea that okay, no, that's not going to work. Well, wait a minute, maybe it will. Let's try it.
How about Hendrix? Did you study any of him?
I love Hendrix. Yeah, he's another one of the greats that Clapton, all those guys, the Allman Brothers, of course. They were always Ted Nugent. Growing up was always
I know, and Ted's just got a distinct sound.
Oh, yeah.
I still love it.
And loud, geez. Yeah.
Well, he plays those birds.
The hollow body, in the back, and I just love that, just that singy, sustain, just go for days, and that's one of the things.
Like what Paul's doing here.
That I love about these amps is they just sing like that. You can play a note when you get them, and especially when you get it turned up so that the speaker is interacting with your guitar a little bit more. It will just, compress and sustain forever, without having to have a compressor pedal or an overdrive pedal or anything in the circuit.
Well, why did they come up with pedals anyways? Because the amps weren't that good back then, or?
Well, you had, some of the amps weren't bad, but, it's just an easy way to get multiple sounds. Well, that's, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a guy like Paul and a guy like me that, you can't afford to have 40 amps when you go into the studio to record to get all your different sounds. Well, yeah, you get all the different sounds in a box, and you set those on the floor in front of you, and it works. It gives you a variety.
But hearing this, is different than
it's the poor man's way of making it work. But. And there's some guys that even, that probably have the money to use something higher end than that in multiples, but they choose to use the pedals just because it's what they maybe grew up starting with and used and are comfortable with. It's easier for me to take and just, standing there playing in front of a bunch of people, I can hit these buttons on the floor and change my sounds instead of having to rely on a bunch of amps behind me to do it. And plus two, especially if you're playing like local, I know Paul isn't going to want to drag 5 amps with him down to the gig to set up. And you run out of space. Yeah. Yeah, the drummer starts getting mad when you got more equipment than he does. You're crowding him off the stage. He's kind of like, hey, wait a minute, guys, something's wrong here.
Well, Paul, it's been some great stuff hearing you, and the amps just sound beautiful. And like I said, we're just got a microphone, just the ambience of the room with them. And I mean, he was playing with just his fingers, no pick, and I mean, you could still hear the attack. And
well, that's the thing. These amps, even when you got them turned up to where they're distorting, a lot of amplifiers when you play. And you get them cranked up like that, they start to get muddy, and you lose the detail of the notes in between. And these amps, they seem to retain the detail, and you get the nice harmonics and all that, so it all kind of comes out still, even though it doesn't muddy up like some amplifiers do.
I know, very beautiful stuff. So, hey, we're going to take a break. We got 2 minutes left. We got a couple more Allman Brothers songs. So I'm just going to go over a list, Jeff, real quick here. Of course, we got Sunday morning's Beatle Brunch with Bill McDonald. That's at 10 a.m. Monday nights at 6 p.m. It's the Michiana Scene, hosted by Mel, Jim, and John. Tuesdays for Maximus and the Bartender for Sports Talk. Wednesday night is Bill again through the deep tracks. And there are two great shows on Thursday night. One is Life is Art, and also Iconic Radio, which we're at now. Friday nights is the Cheap Seats with Sports News with Steve and Steve. And then Saturday night, put your boogie shoes on for the Funk and Groove Show, hosted by Deanna Bennett. So that's what we have. And, of course, Radio Classics will be tonight. And, again, Bill gave me what they're playing. It's Suspense, Sorry Wrong Number, and The House of Cypress Canyon. And that's brought to you by the Phoenix Cafe. So we're just going to have a minute here. We're going to listen to Paul on the guitar. And we'll take a break with a couple songs and be right back with you on Iconic Radio. We're back on. We got about 5 minutes left for the show. Want a big thanks to Bill McDonald, of course, Paul Erdman, always appreciate it, and Jeff Jones for a great show this evening. We're going to have more shows coming up, too. We'll definitely get together with it.
Cool. I'm happy to be here. Glad you invited me.
Well, I appreciate it. And Paul, too, coming out. Of course,
absolutely.
It is Thanksgiving. Everyone's got families, and I'm surprised you guys got up from your naps, to be honest with that.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, why don't you go over again where people can contact you? Because I'm sure listening from the show, there's some interested in wanting to get your amps.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I hope so. I've got a page if you go to Google, tokenamps.com, and then I also have a Facebook page that is linked at the link at the bottom of the page on my web page. And also there's a link for if the local guys want to check them out, or somebody, even if you're coming through town for, Chicago heading somewhere else and want to stop by, South Bend Music Exchange also has a bunch of my amps on hand. It's on Portage Avenue in South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, and that's by Frank's Place, and I'm trying just off of Lincoln Way, right?
Yep. It's just a couple of blocks, maybe 3 blocks down from Lincoln Way. Yeah, it's catty corner from the Firehouse Theater there for the local guys. Mike's a great guy down there. He'd be happy to have you come in and check things out. You can demo all my amps and some of my guitars down there.
Anytime.
You know, is there a warranty with these two? How do you do that?
Oh, well, here is my take on a warranty, okay? If I built it for you, barring your negligence dropping it off the second story of the bar you're playing at or your studio or whatever it might be, if you have a component problem, a transformer burns up or something like that, well, okay, unless the manufacturer is going to replace it for me, I might charge you the part to replace it, but as long as I'm alive, I will fix it for you for free. Wow. I mean, I like to stand behind my products that I build. I don't want anybody out there unhappy. You know, I mean, if I built it, that's my reputation on the line there, and I want to do everything I possibly can to make it work for you and right for you. If you bought one of my amps and you're having problems, get a hold of me. I will make it right. It might be a small cost for parts, but I'm not going to charge you any labor or anything like that ever.
Well, that's fantastic. Hey, can you give Paul the mic? We'll have him just to see where we can get a hold of him real quick, and we'll wrap it up.
This guy here, okay,
You'll have
I guess
to play
I will.
And speak too.
Okay, here you go, Paul.
So, Paul, how can they get a hold of you, and what gigs you got coming up?
Well, in the immediate future, the next two shows that we have coming up tomorrow night, today's Thursday, Friday and Saturday night this week, my trio and I will be over at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse up on University Park Drive. Moving forward from there, you can find us online at www.paulemusic.com. And from there, you can get to our Facebook page and our Twitter page and our YouTube page and our Reverb Nation page. We just put out a new CD, so I've got both my old CD and my brand new CD available at shows. We've got a bunch of stickers and dog tags and guitar picks and a bunch of cool little things like that. But yeah, check out the website, paulemusic.com, and from there you can see when and where we're going to be at. And very, very happy and proud to be one of the guys playing Jeff's amplifiers and his pickups and his stuff, and also Option 5 and South Bend Music Exchange. Got to thank those guys for taking care of us and keeping us going. And Kickstart Studios, which I believe is also affiliated here with XERS Web Radio. Yeah, so there's a lot of very, very cool things happening here locally, and make sure you take an opportunity and check all the good stuff coming from Michiana.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Hey, we'll have them back on. Always check out the Iconic Facebook page for Iconic Radio. Again, we're going to finish up with two Allman Brothers songs. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is Iconic Radio.